I know we don't have too much time, so I want to be respectful. We'll just jump in. All right, let me do this intro really quick. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Midcurve podcast. Don't know what episode this is, doesn't matter. But today we are here with now a Solana legend, honestly. Hardhat Chad came out of nowhere, broke the chain, but will eventually. I feel like you're going to make this place a lot better, right?
hmm
Can you
Yeah,
give me? We're going to get into all of that in this podcast, but can you first start off with the easy question, which is a little bit of your background and why you chose to build on Solana?
yeah, for sure. My background is primarily in the payments field, and so I spent about 3, 4 years working on the payments team at Uber in California, helping build the payroll systems that pay all the drivers around the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so there we were basically tasked with trying to move tens of billions of dollars as cheaply as we could around the world every year, and using all the technologies available to do that. And that involved a lot of working with banks and credit card companies. And I think it was there that like set me up to eventually fall into crypto. But at the
Mm-hmm.
time, I wasn't really sold. I was kind of a crypto skeptic. And I like known about Bitcoin and Ethereum, but I didn't at the time yet buy the Bitcoin story, and Ethereum, just from a practical standpoint, never made much sense to us. And so it wasn't until February 2021 where a friend showed me Solana that it kind of hit me that, okay, I could send $1,000 to anyone, anywhere in the world, over any border, and the transaction would settle in a second and cost a fraction of a cent, and the network runs 24/7. And that, was really competitive to the technologies we were using at Uber, and it's kind of what pulled me in.
Yep. That's oh, man, that's so good. I mean, I have a similar, not super similar, but like similar epiphany when I used Solana for the first time, and the transaction didn't fail, and I didn't lose $100 or $150. So on a failed transaction, trying to send like $40 to a buddy of mine.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting. But I didn't know you worked at Uber. I know Uber is a massive company, but do you know who Akshay is from the Solana Foundation?
Yeah, I think we've chatted once or twice. Yeah.
Okay, so he was at Uber as well. That's cool. Uber's like just pumping out Solana maxis over there, I guess.
Yeah, there's a little bit of an Uber mafia for sure.
That's cool. Okay, so let's dive into this a little bit. Why proof of work and why bring it to Solana?
Yeah, there are a few
Well,
reasons.
sorry, I jumped in like right away. Maybe just give us the TLDR for people who don't know
Right.
of
What?
what Aura is. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So Ore is, we like to describe it as liquid digital gold on
Mm,
Solana. And what that means is we created this token that has the basic like technical properties of Bitcoin, which are proof of work mineable. You have a fixed supply, so there's a total max supply of 5 million Ore tokens, and there's this sort of quote unquote deflationary supply curve that these tokens will be mined over the next 30 years to get there, and it's fair launch. So zero insider token allocation, no inside investors, and then the contract will be frozen. So you get the immutability property for hardness, and but it's native to Solana, which is the important thing. And so with that nativity, we baked into that core mining protocol a native yield mechanism, which pays out rewards to liquidity providers. So if you're providing liquidity for like Ore Sol or Jito, you can earn this native yield, which basically means a percentage of all newly mined tokens gets allocated to you as a liquidity provider. And this helps bootstrap the liquidity
mm,
for the token, and makes it highly liquid. I think like relative to market cap, Ore's liquidity is like a very clear outlier relative to almost any asset in DeFi. Um, so that's kind of like the TLDR summary, is this like liquid digital gold on Solana. If you like sort of Bitcoin and the digital gold idea, and you like DeFi, we're trying to bring those together into this Solana native asset.
Mm. So why, and back to the original question, why proof of
Yeah.
work? Why did you bring basically Bitcoin to Solana? For me, Bitcoin was this ideological thing I got into very early, and I loved
Mhm.
it, and I still love Bitcoin.
Mhm.
Um, do you have a similar, like, did you have a similar thought process, or was this just, something to do?
Yeah, we got to this idea, I think, from a few different places. One was from a standpoint of just like the fun and entertainment value of mining. That's
Mm,
like mining had been this kind of cultural cornerstone of crypto since obviously like day zero. And neither myself nor any of the sort of friends I came into crypto with, and my cohort, none of us had ever mined anything before. And like by that point, Ethereum had or was moving off of proof of work, and participating in Bitcoin mining was just kind of inaccessible or felt inaccessible. And so we sort of had this idea of like, could we bring that culture back? Like, was there at a technical level a way to, from with a laptop, like mine a token? Um, and then it was familiar with Solana and just kind of, was able to write smart contracts there. And so it was just naturally the starting point of where we decided to build Ore. But that was one direction, was just kind of like the entertainment value, and trying to bring like mining to a new generation of users as an onboarding mechanism. And then the second way that we kind of came to Ore was by spending a long time looking at Bitcoin scaling, and like, could we play a role or help bridge as much Bitcoin as possible to Solana? And the longer that we kind of looked at that, I just became less convinced that like locking up trillions of dollars of Bitcoin and bridges was like a smart long-term architecture. and um, and that's even once you did kind of go through this path of like, oh, you give your Bitcoin to a custodian and they reissue it on Solana, or you lock it in a bridge and it gets reminted on Solana. That Bitcoin and DeFi kind of seem like this oil and water pair. Like the wrapped Bitcoin on Solana, the native yield rates, or sorry, not native yield, the yield rates for lending wrapped Bitcoin are at zero basically across DeFi.
mm,
And so for the most part, that wrapped Bitcoin just sits there. And so we're kind of like asking this question of, is it possible to build a digital gold product um, that earns yield basically through by serving as medium exchange. So
mm.
has really deep liquidity and is very actively traded, and that by providing liquidity for those markets, you could have this digital gold product that earns yield. Um, and we
Okay.
realized like the only way to do that is to basically start from scratch.
Mm,
We didn't really see a way to bootstrap that with a wrapped Bitcoin option.
yep. Yes. Okay. So you brought proof of work to Solana, and you almost broke the chain for a little bit, right? Can
Yeah.
you can you tell me, like, I mean, honestly, I think we talked about this on one of the last podcasts, but like Jed used it a great analogy of NASCAR, right? Like just stress testing things and learning stuff from that stress test. So like NASCAR has made the auto industry better as a whole because you can stress test tires in such a short time, or carburetors or whatever. You guys did a similar thing where you just stress tested the chain very
Mhm.
quickly. What did you learn from that experiment?
Uh, yeah, a lot. um, I mean, what effectively happened was that V1 system, in the core mining protocol itself, it had this incentive to spam transactions.
Mm,
And
mm,
we've since changed that. But at the time, to mine the most ore, you would have to submit just lots and lots of transactions, more than other users. And so we kind of knew prior to launching that we were giving every user a bot to spam the chain.
mm,
And what my goal was at the time was just for or transactions to take up like maybe 10 or 20% of every block. And that it would be this kind of like, what is this thing that's taking up 20% of the blocks? And like that would kind of, I don't know, bootstrap attention in some way. But what I didn't know was that, yeah, there was kind of a bug, I guess, the networking layer in Solana at the time, and that all that spam was kind of aggravating that bug and basically causing other transactions, other applications on the network to, their transactions wouldn't reach the leader node. And so with all of this spam that OR was causing, you would have, say, Jupe transactions just would never reach the leader node. They would never get included into blocks, and then they would time out. And everyone had issues finding transactions at the time. And so, yeah, I mean, there was a ton of learnings, I think, in terms of understanding where Solana's like actual bottlenecks were. I think if I recall correctly, at the time, there were some developers in the ecosystem who were calling out this particular bug, but it wasn't necessarily acknowledged by, say, the core engineering teams at Anza until kind of this stress test like really made it obvious and impossible to ignore that that's what the issue was. And yeah, then just understanding that if you break Solana, that a lot of people will care. like people know, and they can't use Solana.
Yep. Okay, so we were talking about like learnings and stuff like that. So I think, is the new version called Drill X?
Drill X is the hash function. The hash function for the proof of work algorithm.
Okay, cool. So what you guys do? Like basically, like how did you fix this problem? Like what's the next version of this? What's the next iteration of it?
Yeah, part of it included Drill X, and so what Drill X does is it really closes the performance gap between say CPUs like a regular laptop and a GPU. And this helps, it is one of the factors that helps ensure that like regular people can mine relatively competitively, or that they can't get locked out of mining is kind of the main goal. You're not necessarily guaranteed to earn a ton of ore if you're mining on a laptop versus like if you deploy 10 GPUs, you're going to mine more ore than if you mine with just a regular MacBook. But the idea is that the regular MacBook shouldn't be locked out from earning rewards. And so DrillX helps with this. And then with the V2 redesign, we also made some adjustments to like the core incentives to basically remove that spam incentive. So miners now are kind of incentivized to submit one transaction every minute as opposed to just as many as possible.
That makes sense. Sorry, I don't even know this. Is this live right now?
Yeah. Or V2
is live. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I started trying to mine at the beginning, but then like life just happened, got too busy, and then like lost track of everything. But I actually met someone who works for Aura in like on a trip I did last weekend, and so he reminded me, and I was like, oh man, we should do a podcast with the Aura guys again, just to see where everything's at. So this is really cool. So can you kind of explain how a normie, like just a normal person, would go about mining ore, and give us like kind of the TLDR step by step of how someone maybe like me who's not super technical would just go and mine ore?
Yeah, so very, very soon we will have a web app. We're currently in the process of redesigning the front end site. And so there it will just be one click. You go in and you register an account and you'll be able to start mining through the browser. The browser won't be the most like efficient way to mine. And so we'll have a native desktop app that you can download from there, which will get the most out of your machine. But yeah, mining will be very, very simple with the launch of the new app. And until then, we have a CLI, command line interface that is pretty easy to install, and all of the users currently use that to mine.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's super cool. I mean, I was early to Bitcoin, but I wasn't early enough to like get into mining and that type of thing. And I wasn't like super into it. I was just like, okay, I'm just going to buy some of this. But I always wish I would have gotten into that more. So it's super cool that like, this is like, I mean, obviously everyone wishes they would have mined Bitcoin back when it was cents, But anyway, like I think it's just super cool. Like proof of work on Solana is like such a cool like kind of use case, and I think it's super super rad that just anyone can go and do it. And so like building the web app is sweet. I'm also down for like having like limited supply, 21 million, I think is also really cool. Just from like the early Bitcoin days, I think that's rad. Anyway, just sorry, I just love what you guys are doing, so I'm like pumped, pumped on it. I know a bunch of other people are in the space as well. So let me move on here and ask you something like more, I guess, broad about
Sure.
just the Solana ecosystem in general. Um, like I guess we'll start with the easy one, but how do you feel about meme coins and what's going on in that space right now?
Oh, it's really fascinating. I was having a debate with someone the other day, um, and sort of trying to make the case that meme coin traders are economically rational.
Oh, really? Wow.
Maybe not psychologically rational, but economically rational. uh, and um, and the basic argument was like, there's an expectation basically that's like if a certain meme is funny, that someone will buy it. Some non-zero, percentage of people will buy this token. And so if you're early to recognizing that, and you recognize that the meme is funny, and you expect that the price of this thing will rise, then it's economically rational to buy the price of the thing that, or to buy the thing that you expect will rise in price.
Mm-hmm.
And and that's not insane. Like if you swap out meme coin there for I don't know, uranium or some sort of commodity, like, and you expect that people are going to buy the commodity and its price is going to rise, it's not irrational to try to front run that and profit from the price appreciation. And so I think like swapping out commodity for meme coin there, like the people who trade meme coins are still economically rational in terms of their speculating,
Mm-hmm.
and like speculation is I think just intrinsic to the way the economy kind of works. But it's just the assets that meme coin traders speculate on are sort of fleeting emotions and
Yeah.
attention, really. And
Yeah, I was gonna say, what's the counter argument there that most meme coin traders, well, one, that they have no value whatsoever, and most meme coin traders are lose like 95% of the time or whatever. What was the
yeah,
counter argument that the person was giving?
well, just there's no way that meme coin traders can be rational.
Yeah,
Like, yeah,
that's funny.
which I also
I
kind of
mean,
like understand.
yeah, yeah. I mean, is it rational to bet on something is going to go to zero?
Mhm,
99% of the time. I don't know.
mhm.
I guess if you can get out before, then I guess it is kind of rational. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a funny argument though. I've never heard anyone talk about meme coin traders as being rational. And as one of those meme coin traders, I can
Yeah.
attest, not not very rational.
Yeah. It certainly is like a new kind of lottery ticket. It's the
Yeah.
way I look at it. Like,
Yeah.
um, some percentage of them really run, and so you're kind of taking the bet of,
Yeah, of
can you
course.
find the ones that are going to take off?
Yeah. I mean, gambling is, I mean, just like almost intrinsic to the human experience, right? Gambling is ancient. I always
Mhm,
tell people, like, I have things kind of compartmentalized in my mind. You hold Bitcoin for a certain reason, you hold Solana for a certain reason, maybe you hold Ore for a certain reason, and then you
mhm,
gamble on meme coins for fun. It's
mhm.
like they're completely different things, and people like you know they kind of mash everything in crypto together, especially like normies, and like no, there's this is like they're very different games being played throughout the
Mhm.
ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
let me ask you something about the community, because like community building has been on top of our mind at Jito for a long time, and something we're striving to do better. Or has built a really strong community. Why is that? I
Mhm.
see people all over the place talking about
Um, I don't know exactly like the answer. We I think people are passionate about like the idea of digital gold. Um, and I think that's broader than just Bitcoin. Bitcoin is clearly the dominant digital gold product, but you had other say e-gold before Bitcoin, which was
Mm,
um, it was before blockchains even. They just held gold in a safety deposit box and ran a database that kept track of people's gold holdings. Um, and so I think part of it is just a passion for that. Um, the mining is just really entertaining for people. Like
mm,
people find it fun, and there's a lot of people that get engaged with ore through that. They'll pull in a friend who necessarily wasn't even in crypto at all anymore, but is maybe somewhat technical, um, and a lot of people got pulled into ore that way
mm,
of just trying to optimize their mining rigs and set up GPUs um, and do that. And then we have a number of pool operators, like mining pool operators in the Ore ecosystem that, um, yeah, help like onboard people. They create custom mining clients. Uh,
mm.
they help communicate or educate the community on like what Ore is, and they're very active on Discord and on Twitter as well. And yeah, I think for better or worse, um, like both metallic gold and digital gold tends to um, sort of stir up like semi-religious sentiment, and so it's just kind of Ore is attracting some of that um, ideology as well, I think.
Why is that? Why do you
Well,
think
okay, so the real reason,
people?
my theory here, we spent a little bit of time thinking about it, is that it has to be that way because gold and Bitcoin, in both cases, are non-productive assets.
Mm,
So gold is not used to, produce any real economic goods, or it's not an input to any real production process, and neither does it serve as a medium of exchange. Like we don't trade gold coins anymore for coffee, um,
yep.
and so gold just kind of sits there in these vaults. And then Bitcoin is rather similar. Bitcoin is not used to produce goods, and it's not really used as a medium of exchange either. Um, it trades primarily against USDC on centralized exchanges, or sorry, USD on centralized exchanges. Um, but it's not used to like buy coffees or buy cars typically. And um, and so when you don't have, you have this non-productive assets that can't really do anything but sit there, um, then
You have to give it
you
meaning.
know,
Some.
yeah, like the demand for it by definition is religious. Like, like it's done. Otherwise, the demand wouldn't exist at all. And so I think that's partly um, why it's the case. But um, yeah, there's maybe other factors at play there, like cultural reasons, historical path dependency reasons, why there's such like strong sentiments around gold and Bitcoin. But um, but yeah, I think the demand for it is just it has to be religious because the assets aren't productive.
Yeah, that's. I remember reading in the early days there was all these people, and like Bitcoin was getting very, very religious. They were talking about it being like the philosopher's stone, and there's a bunch of books that were written around that time about how like Bitcoin was the virgin birth, and there's like all this like very I don't know. It always kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. It
Mhm.
got very cult like very quick, and so I always say, because I kind of was a Bitcoin maximalist at the beginning. I always say I left the Church of Bitcoin like fairly early on, um, but
Yep.
but it's still, I mean, honestly, it's still like that. So I always found it interesting that you're right. Like there's like Bitcoin and gold, like they get very religious very quickly,
Mhm.
and maybe it is just that it's not really productive, so there has to like people have to ascribe some type of value to it, and that's what comes about. But anyway, so last question for you is what's next for Or, what's next for you, what's next for Solana?
Yeah, the really big thing we have coming in just a few weeks is the relaunch of the website and the app. And so this will bring kind of a unified front end to everything Ore. And with that are the boosts. as well. Boosts are kind of Or's native yield mechanism, the way we incentivize people to provide liquidity. And so there'll be a dashboard there for discovering boosts and providing liquidity for the token. And we are kind of exploring setting up a, well, one, we're going to be launching a bunch of boosts for some key assets in the Solana ecosystem.
Like
And
Jito
then,
Soul.
yeah, either Jito Soul or Jito. We were looking at one or the other.
Oh, okay. Okay. There we go.
But then we would love to run like a competition basically, and details kind of TBD, but or can basically help bring liquidity to your token if you have a token, and so yeah, we would like to run a competition for various communities in the Solana ecosystem to try to compete to win one of these boosts, and we'll set one up and can help make that token a part of the OR liquidity network.
Interesting. Okay. You've piqued my interest. Jito, I feel like Jito would be really interested in running one of these competitions. So let's chat more about this offline. This would be cool.
Absolutely.
Okay. My friend, thank you for coming on to the Midcurve podcast. This has been awesome. Love chatting with you, and hopefully we get to hang out in person at some point this year at some event, and maybe we can do like an in-person podcast, record some stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to.
You'd have to wear like a mask and a hard hat and stuff and glasses.
Yeah. I'll wear a hard hat. Yeah, maybe some sort of like glasses and mustache would work.
Oh, that would be so funny. That'd be cool. Okay, my friend, let's end it here. Thank you so much.
Sounds good. See you.
All right. See ya.